Welcome to this video. We'll explain how spawners work when it comes to spawning an enemy and what happens if you want a specific enemy to patrol or do whatever you want, and how to distinguish between spawned enemies, especially if a spawner can spawn more than one. So let's take a look here for a second, and as you can see the spawner has a sphere to it, it's in black. The moment you try to interact with the sphere, you notice on the top left there will be a compiling shader or preparing shaders or whatever. That's a very good indicator that whatever you are trying to spawn is not even in the memory, which is good for performance when you try to, especially when you have that many enemies in a game and you don't want to reference all of them simply by putting them on the map. Because putting things on the map by itself is already a bad thing to do when it comes to performance. So let's go here a little bit, and I want to show you on the top left. Remember, I'm using 5.3 here, so I'm not sure how it will be in later versions. But no, when I'm going to interact here, it's gonna show on the top left, and then you're gonna start to see the enemy. See here? Once all of this is done, now the enemy spawns. Now let's explain a little bit here before I go to the patrolling enemy. Now, a spawner, you can simply take it from here. You type in spawner, you see BP Tempest AI spawn. Don't take this one, take this one, the blueprint version. If you drag this, you're gonna get the same overlapping sphere and a billboard. And we have, if you look here under spawner initialization, there's a spawner processor, and there's two sections under it, the default and spawner initialization. Initialization has conditions to it. So once you have a processor, which is instanced, and the conditions are also instanced, once you have those, you can modify functionality or you can add variables. So you can take per spawner if you like. Let's take a look at standard spawner condition here. Now for the spawner processor to actually work on overlap, it will have a condition and the condition have to be true. And whenever you exit the overlap, it has a destruction condition for when it wants to destroy something. Say for example you entered and it spawned, but you don't want to despawn him while he's in combat. So you can add a condition to check here that he's not in combat before you try to despawn him, and so on. So let's take a look at the plugins here, and there is a spawner condition here. The spawner condition has a function called getConditionResult. Now, the owner of the condition is the processor. The processor itself, if we go to this processor, has a reference to the spawner itself. So spawner, you have a processor. From the processor, you have the condition. Now, the outer, which is the owner of the processor, has these values in it. So the condition, one of the conditions here is having a valid reference to a character to spawn under that specific processor. If you add a variable here, for example, quest name or something like this, and I give it a name, I'll take these two. Now, if you go here, you'll see in under it already has a quest name. So for example, you can add here one of the conditions to be and quest name is equal to whatever you want to name it, and it will be different per spawner. Just keep that in mind. The same thing happens with the destruction condition on the one on this side. The standard on our scenario has few things to keep in mind. One, properties for all elements. Now you can change this however you like, and it will change the functionality inside it. Now if you take a look at the spawner, let's close the condition. The processor itself, it has few values. The first value, uh, character to spawn and the spawned actors. These are the actors that is spawned, and it can spawn more than one or it can spawn only one, up to you completely. The properties for all elements are usually special properties. It's an array. So remember in the data asset itself, it had a bunch of properties, special properties like the, what do we call it? Spawn info property, event appear AI sense, and AI behavior authority. Sometimes you don't want a specific property in a data asset, especially if you're gonna reuse this AI all over the place. If you are, and for example, you wanna patrol them, just like in this case, You're gonna give them a patrolling property. However, the patrolling property have 4 points, and you want both of those AI to use those points. So both of the AI will have this patrolling property added on top of what they have already here. So that's the element for all. That's the properties for all the elements. About the specific elements, special details, we have one AI to spawn. You can specify who with it, who's this AI gonna be, and the spawn transform will use a spawn point. Now, if you go here and click on a spawn point, and you'll see BP Tempest spawn point. If you take it right here and drag it. However, now you can see it, but you have to assign this here, and this was called zero point 0.5. Let's add zero point 0.5 here, and the special properties for this specific spawn AI. Now this is for everybody, and this is for only one. Now once you hook it there, and you click anywhere empty, it disappeared. It only shows once you click it again, and you can move it or do whatever you want. Remember, the AI will spawn whenever this is put, so the rotation will matter, and the location will also matter. So just keep that in mind. I'll remove this. Let's go back to the patrolling enemy itself. Here we don't have a specific property. However, we are spawning two AIs with the patrolling property on the start. And if we go to the AIs themselves, they're using this weapon, AI standard, and the standard mob is using this standard enemy data asset, and they are spawning with the AI patrolling state. Now the patrolling state, one of its conditions is to actually have a patrolling property from here, this one, and the patrolling points are bigger than 1. So it has 4 in this scenario. So it will try to run the patrolling state, but the patrolling state will check the patrolling property being there, and if it is, it will continue to do the patrolling stuff it's doing. This was just a high level look at the spawners. You can customize this however you want. If you even take a look at the blueprint here, it barely has anything. It's just gonna use this overlapping sphere to detect if uh, something should happen or not. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and if you have more suggestions on more things to cover, please let me know in the Discord, and I'll be happy to assist you guys. See you guys in the next one.